welcome to Windsor Castle Farm and Park. We're here in the historic area. It's a beautiful day, a tad bit windy out. So if you have trouble hearing, just type in and let Jennifer, our producer, know that you can't hear, and I'll talk louder for that. But today we're going to kind of go over the cemetery that is here at Windsor Castle Park, standing in this kind of cemetery area. A lot of farms and homes in the early colonial times started having cemeteries on their actual property. Sometimes it was a far hike into the churchyard, so a lot of families have their own burial plots on their property. So a number of years ago, the Wight County Historical Society actually went out to evaluate and record all of the cemeteries in Wight County. And they figured between the family cemeteries and the small church cemeteries, they recorded about 22,000 cemetery type areas in Wight County. So that's kind of hard to imagine in our county. But a lot of folks have small burial plots on their property. The one here at Windsor Castle Park is kind of preserved in an interesting location. We know a little bit about it because Arthur Smith I, the one who first patented the land here in 1634, a little over 2,000 acres, when he died in 1645, his last will and testament mentioned that he wanted to be buried in the garden next to his dear wife. So we know his wife was buried in a small garden area, probably the beginning of their cemetery area, and we know he was buried there as well. It does not say on a land plat where it's at, but as time went on, a burial ground started to evolve here. And we do know with Arthur Smith V, when he sold the property to Watson P. Jordan in 1634, that he kept as part of the deed a fourth of an acre as the cemetery for the Smith family. So when we're standing here, we're kind of looking behind us. You'll see all of these trees growing in this area next to a farm field. And this is probably the little fourth of an acre he was talking about. There's a number of graves here. We do have a number of gravestones. Now this cemetery area is right here on our Windsor Castle Trail. We have folks walking by, so you can actually walk by the trees. You can see it. You don't have to trudge out into the woods and fight the brambles and the snakes to come to the cemetery. But we have two stones here, and we'll walk over and look at these. So the first one is of Richard Godwin, and he actually died, if you can look at it closer, he's actually not buried here. He died in Little Rock, Arkansas in 1870. But Richard Godwin was a descendant and relative of the Whitehead family who married into the Smith family. So he has loose ties with the family here at Windsor Castle, so his stone is in place in memorial. And then on the other side, you have another large Whitehead one. This is Arthur Smith, son of Arthur Richard Whitehead, who was actually buried here in 1921. So again, the Whitehead family with close ties to the Smith family. Now we do know through ground penetrating radar there's actually 4 burials here, but the other ones we do not know who these folks are exactly. These are the only stones that can be seen here at the kind of the grounds. So we're going to walk over here, step over the little headway, and come farther into the cemetery area. Again, this area is a tad bit raised up, and most likely there's a number of burials in here. And we know a little bit about this because of ground penetrating radar. Ground penetrating radar is an archaeological process that does not disturb the soil. So instead of kind of digging up and pulling the soil and trying to find folks, we actually use a radar. We have a question? Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, here we go. Wind's getting me. So ground penetrating radar, they walk across with a bit of a radar signal, and it goes down into the ground, and when it hits an anomaly or a heavy dense soil, maybe some bones, maybe a coffin, it bounces back and hits the sensor on the ground penetrating radar system. And then they take the distance it took to bounce back, and they kind of guess how deep it is in the shape of the object. So I have a map here, and I know it's going to be hard to see, I'm going to hold it right up here to the camera. This is what the ground penetrating radar was done here. You can see here, this is an outline of the possible boundary, original boundary here. We have the 4 noted graves here, and then we have other possible ones. So we don't know whether these are actual or just anomalies, maybe a big old tree root. But we do know that there's possible ones, and that would be something that we could evaluate archaeologically. But there's some tricks with doing this archaeologically. First of all, you have to have a permit from the Virginia Historical Department, and the permit has to say why it is important to come out here to a cemetery and disturb known graves. You also have to have family consent, so there are descendants of the Smiths and the Whiteheads and other folks that are in here. And the question too, as part of your plan, what's going to happen to the remains? So if you do dig and you find a body, what's going to happen to them? Are you going to exhume them? Are they going to do DNA testing and be like Jamestown Rediscovery and send them to the Smithsonian and maybe make some facial recognitions? Are they going to rebury them in the same location? Is there another location are they going to bury? So the question is, what do you do with the remains? Cemeteries and burial areas are not something that people go in and quickly excavate and try to evaluate, because they are hollow ground, they are remains of humans there, and they have to be very, very careful with that. So the town of Smithfield has to set up a plan if it wants to evaluate this a little bit more about whether or not it's feasible, price-wise, how to do things that are not disturbing to the graves that are here. Maybe do 1 or 2 test areas. We're not sure. So we're setting up a plan to evaluate this. But we do know that this is a cemetery area. You can see it within walking distance over here of the house. And we do know that 1 or 2 members of the Smith family is buried here. Now, we're not sure if Arthur Smith, number 1, is here, and his wife, if this is the location they're talking about, but that's something that could be investigated in the future. One of these positive things about this is, as you take your time, hopefully new technology will build, and hopefully new technology will allow us to evaluate this without disturbing the soil and the occupants that are here. So I encourage you to send the museum any questions you might have about this. I also encourage you to go to the Isle of Wight County Historical Society's website, and they have their cemetery evaluation and survey on there, and you can see all of the cemeteries that they evaluated. Many of them they've listed out the stones. A lot of them are on public property. You can go and visit them. And also stay tuned in our Isle of Wight County Museum Facebook page. We have special tours of Ivy Hill Cemetery, talking a little bit about the history of the stones and the type of people here in Isle of Wight County. Some of the main figures and some interesting stories. So join us again. In a couple weeks, we're going to be doing another live here at Windsor Castle, talking about archaeology, talking about some of the excavations that were done here, some of the information that was found, in some ways that we can tell the story of Windsor Castle, the house and the farm and park, through things left behind in the ground. So have a great weekend and enjoy our windy, nice day.